Under the sickly yellow light of the Bronx High cafeteria, I sat slouched against a vending machine that hadn't worked since 2018. My coat smelled like damp cardboard and regret. My beard, now more gray than black, scratched against my chest as I tilted my chin down, hiding from the stares. That's the thing about the ground. When you've been at the top long enough, falling becomes a choice. I wasn't forced down here. I walked. They didn't recognize me. Not the janitor sweeping crumbs nearby. Not the teachers rushing past with coffee cups and dead eyes. Not the kids. Especially not the kids. I watched them through lowered lids, the way a lion watches a herd. Every now and then, a group would slow down, pull out a phone, and pretend to film something else while panning across me. Content farming. I was the background freak of the week. My name used to crack the bones of this city. Now, it barely stirred a glance. John Ezekiel. You remember that name, don't you? They used to say I could kill 12 men before my coffee went cold. Used to say I walked into a nightclub in East Harlem and walked out with every cartel leader bleeding on the floor. They say a lot of things when you disappear long enough. Some true, most exaggerated. But I didn't care about legends today. I was here because a name came across my radar. One I hadn't heard before. One that didn't belong to anyone I had crossed back in the old days. That alone made it dangerous. Morris Kane. A new face. A new noise in a city already loud with ambition and blood. He wasn't part of the old wars. He rose from a digital battlefield, Snapchat deals, telegram commands, crypto laundered through Fortnite skins. The new breed, flashy, reckless, public. But even digital kings leave footprints. And I was tracing his through the school cafeteria, because if rumors were true, he'd started recruiting from here. High schoolers, cheap labor, desperate hands. I didn't come to talk. I came to watch. And then, I'd decide. A tray clattered behind me. A soda can rolled and hit my boot. I didn't flinch. The group of kids near the table barely noticed me. One of them, a wiry kid with perfect skin and no fear in his bones, snapped a pic of his burger, then turned to the girl next to him. Watch this. He stood, took the can, walked over, phone already recording in selfie mode. I smelled him before I heard him, cheap cologne and overpriced gum. Yo, what's up, y'all? We got Bronx' own cafeteria bum right here, he announced to his phone, voice obnoxious and proud. The girl laughed behind him. Another kid muttered something like chill, but it didn't stop him. He crouched near me, camera too close. Hey Gramps, you thirsty? His voice was sugar slick. I said nothing. He shook the can, grinning, open wide. Then came the hiss, the burst, and the cold sting of sugar water splashing across my face. The cafeteria gasped, but no one moved. Not even the janitor, just a sea of screens raised high, capturing every second. I blinked, slowly. Let the sticky liquid slide down my cheeks into the creases beside my mouth. He laughed. Got him! Say hi to TikTok, old man! I raised my head, just a few inches, just enough. He looked down at me, still smiling, still broadcasting to thousands. What's your name anyway? He asked, almost mockingly. I met his eyes. John Ezekiel. His smirk faltered. Silence stretched across the room like a razor wire. Then came the whisper, from somewhere behind him. Maybe the girl, maybe a teacher who should have walked away. No way. Phones lowered, eyes widened. The air thickened, full of old stories clawing their way back into the light. He laughed again, nervous this time. Nah, you lyin'. Ezekiel's dead. I rose, and the cafeteria forgot how to breathe. My knees cracked like old knuckles as I pushed myself to stand, the sticky soda still dripping from my chin. His grin faltered for real this time. He stepped back, bumping into a chair, his phone still raised, but now trembling. That name, my name, cut through the noise of the cafeteria like a gunshot in a church. John Ezekiel. You could see it settle in, slowly, like an infection spreading from ear to brain. They'd heard it before. Not from a textbook, no. From whispers, from warnings, from stories traded at midnight behind locked doors. I scanned the room, every eye on me, every hand frozen. For once, no one had anything smart to say. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten. I just walked, past the idiot kid who now looked like he'd pissed himself, Past the teacher near the milk fridge pretending to fumble with her keys. Past the janitor, who gave me a small nod like he'd seen a ghost and remembered he owed it money. I walked out the back door and into the cold New York air, the wind stinging my face like punishment. I wasn't mad, not really. Embarrassment, please. I've been shot at point blank. I've stared down men whose hands shook not from fear, but because they were so high on bloodlust they couldn't hold their own guns straight. A soda to the face? Child's play. But still, something had cracked open in me. Something I buried deep. I crossed the parking lot and dropped onto the edge of a cracked sidewalk bench. Lit a cigarette I'd been saving. It tasted stale. The Bronx hadn't changed much. Buildings still leaned like they were too tired to stand straight. Sirens still sang lullabies in the distance, and people still forgot the rules. Respect. That was the rule they'd broken today. And not just for me, for the streets, for the ghosts. Because even a legend fades if no one tells the story right. That boy didn't know what he'd done splashing me like that. But he'd find out soon enough. Not because I was going to hunt him. No, this wasn't about revenge. This was about balance, about sending a message. There's a rhythm to the underworld. You don't spit in the rhythm. You don't piss on the old songs. You respect the blood that came before. The phone in my pocket vibrated. I didn't remember putting it on silent, but I hadn't needed noise in years. I checked the screen. No caller ID, of course. "Pazzo," I answered. A familiar voice, low and grating, filled the line. "You making noise again, John?" I took a slow drag. Didn't mean to. "Too late. That clip's climbing. Already hit 40,000 views. Let it climb. They're gonna come looking. They already are." A pause. Then quieter, like the caller had turned away. "He's got Kane's face tatted on his shoulder. The kid. You see it?" I hadn't. But now I remembered the slight peak of ink above his collar, right beneath the edge of his chain. I exhaled. Looks like your ghost's about to dance with the future." "I don't dance," I said. "I bury music." The call ended. I flicked the cigarette to the curb and watched it sizzle in a patch of melted snow. So Kane was pulling high schoolers now. That was new. That was bold. But bold doesn't mean smart. Because Kane? He didn't know what kind of door had just opened. And that kid? The one who wanted likes more than life itself. He wasn't just the start of a video. He was the start of a war. The snow had begun to fall again. A quiet dusting over the city that never truly slept. Never truly forgave. I walked with no destination, just the way I always used to when I needed to think. When the world was making too much noise and I needed silence that only motion could bring. My boots hit the concrete in that steady rhythm I'd perfected years ago. Left, right, threat assessment. Left, right, memory. That kid's face wouldn't leave me. Not his smirk. Not his shake when I stood up. Not even that stupid chain around his neck bouncing with each dumb movement. But it was the tattoo that had my mind racing now. Morris Kane. I hadn't heard that name in over a year. Not because he wasn't making waves, but because he was making the wrong kind of waves. Flashy, loud, too much social media, too many parties. The man had his mug splattered across influencers' feeds like he was some kind of streetwear god. That wasn't how the game was played, not in my time. You kept your head down. You moved in shadows. You didn't build empires out in the open. You let other people build them for you, and then you made them disappear when they got too proud. But Kane? He wanted to be seen, and that made him sloppy. I needed intel, fast. Not the kind of crap you find on Twitter threads from fake accounts. I needed boots-on-the-ground whispers, back-alley truths. There was only one man I trusted for that. Nico Knives Santiago. We used to run together back in the mid-2000s, cleaning up Harlem and flushing out the Eastern Bloc scum that tried to plant roots there. Nico had a thing for sharp steel and sharper words. Last I heard, he ran a pawn shop disguised as a vape lounge on the edge of 187th. I headed there before the city could swallow me whole again. The door chimed when I stepped in. Fake clouds of chemical blueberry floated around, choking the place in manufactured calm. Kids hung out by the glass counter pretending to browse mods while whispering about God knows what. But the moment Nico saw me, everything changed. He was older, grayer. But those eyes, still snake-slick, still watching everything, locked on to me with the intensity of a man remembering both respect and fear. Well, damn. he muttered, voice low like it didn't trust itself. I thought the devil took you. Not yet, I said, pulling my hood back. You still got ears on the ground? He gestured toward the back without another word. The office hadn't changed. Still smelled like sweat and polish. A wall lined with knives from every part of the world. Turkey, Japan, somewhere deep in Brazil. I sat. He poured 2 glasses of something dark. You're shaking trees again, he said. I didn't touch the tree. Some punk came and pissed on my boots. He nodded. Saw the video. Didn't believe it at first. Then I saw your eyes. Silence. Then I leaned in. Morris Kane, the kid had his ink. Nico's jaw clenched. Kane's recruiting kids now. Fast and quiet. Promises cash, clout, protection. They deliver pills inside video game consoles, drive Teslas with fake Uber tags. He doesn't even touch the product anymore. Just watches from his penthouse on 89th. He's using schools? Nico nodded. 3 so far. Bronx High's his latest. He calls it the nursery. Says they're easier to mold when they're still hungry. My fists curled. That old fire I buried long ago flared up in my chest. He's got a new crew, too, Nico added. Goes by the Current. They wear white hoodies, carry stun blades, and live stream assaults, all for attention. Not loyalty, I muttered. Nope, likes and fear, that's all they understand. I finished the drink, let it burn on the way down. Where can I find the boy? The one who soaked you? I nodded. He hangs out near Tremont Skate Park, thinks he's invincible. Is he armed? Nico chuckled darkly. Only with a phone. I stood, slid the glass across the desk. I won't kill him, I said, not yet. Nico raised a brow. Then why find him? I looked him dead in the eyes. To ask him one question. What made you so bold you forgot to fear ghosts? As I left, I felt the city shift beneath my feet, like the Bronx itself exhaled, waking up from a long slumber. It knew I was back, and it remembered what that meant. Tremont Skate Park was half empty when I arrived, wrapped in the blue-gray veil of dusk. A few kids lingered on the ramps, skating lazily, heads down in their phones more than on their boards. Taglines in neon jackets, egos too big for their bones. And among them, like a wolf in sheep's Gucci, was the boy. He hadn't changed much. Same white hoodie, same chain bouncing with false confidence, same half-smirk plastered on his face like he'd earned the right to wear it. But this time I wasn't a stranger in the shadows. He saw me, froze mid-sentence, halfway through recording another video for his so-called fans. I kept walking, no rush, no words, just presence. His friends noticed first, one of them whispering something sharp and panicked. Another actually started recording, hoping lightning would strike twice. But this wasn't about TikTok anymore. This was about accountability. He stepped back. Yo, this some kind of joke? I stopped just 10 feet away. The silence in the park wrapped us in barbed wire. What's your name? I asked calmly. He blinked. You already know it. You said it at the school. But I don't know who the hell you are, all right? I don't care who you were. You should. I saw the videos, old man. Some old dudes talking about you in back alleys. That ain't real. That's just Bronx boogeyman crap. I stepped closer. Do I look like a ghost to you? He backed up another foot. But then something changed. His face hardened. Maybe his ego snapped under pressure. Maybe Kane's name gave him courage. You think just 'cause you were something back in the 90s, people still scared of you? Bro, we ain't scared. We go viral. We run on views. You're just noise. You're nothing now. The other boys laughed nervously, thinking that would be enough. I took one more step. His friend moved in, arm out like a bouncer. Tall kid, shaved eyebrows. He reached for something in his waistband. Bad move. In one breath, I grabbed his wrist, twisted it backward, and slammed him against the chain-link fence. He crumpled, groaning. The phone fell. Cracked. Gasps. The leader stepped back, breathing harder now. I don't want to hurt you, I said, low and measured. I want to know why Kane marked you. His eyes flickered. I'm not part of anything. It's just ink. A flex, man. That's it. I grabbed the chain around his neck and yanked him forward, inches from my face. You wear a dead man's crest, I said coldly. You mock a kingdom you don't understand. Then I released him. He stumbled, caught himself, shook with adrenaline and fear. You want a flex? Fine, I said. But there's blood behind that ink. 12 graves deep. I dug them. You want to be number 13? His mouth opened, but nothing came out. The others scattered. One ran without looking back. Another fumbled his phone, trying to delete the clip he'd just taken. Cowards. He stood alone now, shoulders sagging like someone had finally ripped the ego from his chest. I turned, began to walk. Behind me, his voice cracked. You're really him? I didn't stop. You gonna kill Kane? Now I paused, just long enough. No, I said, he's already dead. He just doesn't know it yet. I left him with his shame, his broken circle, his cracked phone, and the bitter taste of truth. And for the first time in a long while, I felt it. The pulse, the rhythm. The streets were listening again. The Bronx buzzed louder that night, like something primal under the pavement had started to wake up. I didn't sleep. I just walked, through alleyways that smelled of piss and regret, past bodegas where old-timers sat with folded arms and unspoken memories. Word was spreading, not through headlines, not through official channels, but through whispers. Ezekiel's back. You could hear it in stairwells, in barber shops, in underground dice games beneath delis. The name that once silenced rooms was now echoing again. But Kane didn't stay silent. He answered, loudly. The video hit Meta first, then TikTok, X everywhere else. It started with a close-up of the same kid I'd confronted. Hoodie, chain, pride. But this time his lip was split and trembling. Someone was filming him, forcing him to speak. I didn't mean no disrespect to the OG. It was just content. I ain't in no crew. I ain't... Slap, off camera, hard. He flinched. A voice followed, smooth, arrogant. That ain't what you said when you tagged Kane's name on your chest. You wear the mark. You rep the consequences. Then the camera panned to a man I'd never seen in person. Morris Kane, younger than I'd expected, mid-30s, gold grill, dreads tied back, designer everything, like he'd been printed from the pages of a counterfeit lifestyle magazine. But his eyes, they didn't blink, didn't smile. Dead eyes. This one thought he could bark at ghosts and walk away clean, Kane said, his voice silk over broken glass. But ghosts don't stay buried when you piss on their names. He turned to the camera, looked directly at me. Come get your boy, Ezekiel. I'll be waiting. The video ended. My hands didn't shake. They'd stopped shaking decades ago. But my jaw tightened. That crack in my chest, the one I'd tried to seal with distance, time, and silence, split wide open. He'd made it personal. I didn't blame the kid. He was just a pawn trying to become a king without knowing the rules. But Kane? He was building an empire off borrowed fear, and now he was borrowing mine. I needed eyes inside, fast. So I went where even ghosts need permission, back to the watchtower. Not a place, a man. Watchtower ran surveillance rings long before they had a name. He saw what no one else saw. Watched the cameras no one knew existed. He didn't ask questions, he just dealt in footage. His office was inside an abandoned movie theater on 149th, hidden behind a false panel where the popcorn used to be. When I stepped inside, he didn't turn. Just spoke as if continuing a thought. You're trending, old man. Didn't ask to. He handed me a tablet, footage already loaded. Security cams, drones, phone syncs. I watched Kane move through his circle like a prophet among insects. Surrounded by kids wearing those same white hoodies, their eyes too wired to blink. You see what he's doing? Watchtower asked, his voice low and metallic. Yeah, he's feeding them candy with arsenic on the wrapper. Kane's not just running a crew, he's building a cult. Tech, pills, ego. Every click funds him. Every view's a brick in his palace. What's the weak point? Same as always. Pride? Watchtower nodded. And mirrors. He needs to be seen. Pull that away, he collapses. I leaned back, thought for a beat. He likes theaters? Owns one, Midtown, closed to the public, calls it his sanctuary. Of course he does. I passed the tablet back. Get me in. Alone? I didn't answer, because some things don't need saying. By morning, the city would know what I already knew. Morris Kane wasn't the future. He was just the next name waiting to be forgotten. I waited until midnight. The kind of midnight where the air feels thick, like the city's holding its breath, waiting to see who dies first. Kane's sanctuary sat like a monument to ego on West 45th, an old theater with a velvet marquee that hadn't lit up since Beyoncé still toured with Destiny's Child. But inside it pulsed with life, twisted life. Watchtower's intel was razor sharp. Kane had retrofitted the place into a fortress. Motion sensors, retinal scanners, an AI-linked security hub designed by some ex-MIT dropout turned darknet savant. But it all ran on one current, Kane's hunger to be watched. The man was addicted to his own reflection. Cameras everywhere. Not for protection, for admiration. His own narcissism was the flaw. So I gave him what he wanted. I walked straight through the front door. No mask, no gear, no shadow play. Just me, John Ezekiel. And just like I expected, within 60 seconds I was surrounded. 3 boys in white hoodies blocked the lobby, guns drawn, hands twitching like they weren't sure whether to shoot or ask for a selfie. One of them spoke. How'd you? I raised my hands. Take me to Kane. They didn't have a script for that. I watched the panic bloom in their eyes. Watched them realize that whatever they'd been told about the bogeyman wasn't enough to prepare them for the real thing. But eventually, one of them nodded and led me through. We moved past rows of gutted seats and neon graffiti, past velvet ropes turned to mold, past screens still frozen on Kane's live streams, him preaching, dancing, threatening. They opened the backstage door. Kane sat center stage, beneath a hanging art piece of his own face, 12 feet tall, spray-painted like some third-rate Warhol fever dream. He was wearing a blood-red jacket. Too much gold, too many eyes on him, real and digital. But he smiled like we were old friends at a reunion. "Look at this," he said, arms wide. "Bronx's oldest ghost, back from the dirt." I didn't speak, just watched him. Let the silence choke the room. He stood. "What, no speeches, no warnings? You just gonna glare at me, OG?" "You're poisoning them," I said, voice steady. He laughed. "Them? Bro, they're already poisoned. I just gave them purpose." "You gave them illusions, empty fame, fake legacy. You filled the void with mirrors." Kane's face changed, slightly, like the edges of his smile cracked. "They were already lost," he said. "I gave them a target. You." A screen behind him flickered. It was the cafeteria video, me drenched in soda, staring down the kid. "You know how many new followers I got after that? 400,000 in one night? You made me viral." He stepped forward. "But you also made a mistake, old man. You walked into the fire thinking it was smoke." I scanned the room, saw the heat sensors in the ceiling, the glint of gun barrels tucked into the balconies. His soldiers were watching, and worse, filming. They wanted content. "Give them a show," he whispered. "Come on, one last round, you versus me, old blood versus new fire." I stepped forward 2 paces, 3, until we were almost touching. "You think this is a show?" I said. "Ain't it?" I reached into my coat slowly, not for a weapon, for something far more dangerous. A phone, one of his, from his own ranks. I tapped the screen. Every monitor in the theater went black, then burst to life with a different feed. Hidden cams, conversations, stolen messages, Kane ordering hits, exploiting minors, shipping product in after-school snack boxes. Everything. Broadcasted, synced, streamed. Watchtower had been busy. Kane staggered. How did you? I leaned close. "You forgot who built the system before you gamed it." He swung, wild, pride finally cracking into panic. I caught his arm, drove my elbow into his throat, and swept his legs. He hit the stage hard. Silence. His followers watched from the shadows, unsure now if they were filming a victory or a downfall. I stood over him. "This ain't content," I said. "It's consequence." Then I walked off stage and let the truth play. By dawn, the city wasn't breathing right. Kane's face, once plastered across live streams and burner accounts, was now split across 100 glitching screens, each one playing a different version of his fall. The footage hit hard, not just because of what he said or did, but because it proved the one thing the city had forgotten. Power without roots is rot. Watchtower made sure it spread like wildfire. He tapped into proxy servers in Tokyo, funneled footage through Russian ghost nets, rerouted through South African dance forums. Don't ask why, it works. And by the time the authorities tried pulling it down, it had already become a virus the internet couldn't contain. Kane's followers were the first to scatter. Some deleted their profiles. Some changed their handles. Some tried to pivot into fashion influencers, pretending they'd never worn white hoodies with gold chains and stun knives. A few stayed loyal, not to Kane, but to the spectacle. They wanted closure, wanted the third act, and I gave it to them. Because 2 nights later, Kane disappeared. No witnesses, no blood, no screaming. He just stopped posting. His sanctuary locked, phones unanswered, messages undelivered. Rumors spread faster than facts. "He ran. He OD'd. Cartel cleaned him out. Ezekiel put him in the river, old school." But none of them knew, because no one saw the final moment except me. He was waiting, top of a parking tower in Upper Manhattan, alone. Hoodie over his head, no cameras, no crew. When I arrived, he didn't run, didn't even speak, just looked at me like he already knew what I'd say, so I didn't say it. I walked up, took the chain off his neck, the same one the kid had worn. Kane flinched when I touched it. Not from pain, from memory. I dropped it over the side of the building, watched it disappear into the gray city fog. Then I looked at him. Start walking. He blinked. Where? South. He hesitated. I'm not gonna kill you, Kane. That'd make you a martyr. That'd let your name live. He looked like he wanted to cry, or laugh, or both. You're gonna disappear, I said. Not into fire, into silence. He took one step, then another. By the time he reached the stairwell, his footsteps barely echoed. And just like that, he was gone. No blood, no revenge, just erasure. Sometimes that's the cruelest end of all. By sunrise, I was back at Tremont. Same bench, same cracked sidewalk, but this time no one filmed. The kid, yeah, him, walked past with a coffee and a nod. Still bruised, still quieter, but changed. He didn't speak, neither did I. Respect doesn't need words, it just needs memory. I never liked goodbyes. They always felt like lies, like trying to fold a lifetime into a handshake, or a history into a smile. I didn't need anyone to wave me off or pretend they'd remember me fondly. I didn't need anyone to remember me at all, but the Bronx did. Not through monuments, not through plaques or news articles, but through silence. There was something different now in the way the block exhaled. A calm that hadn't touched this borough in years. No more kids in white hoodies. No more alley deals disguised as charity. The fear shifted. Not because someone new took the throne, but because the throne was burned to ash. I walked past a mural that hadn't been there last week. It wasn't Kane's face. It wasn't mine either. It was a crown, crumpled, burned. At its base, a shadow walking away. Someone had understood the message. Someone turned the war into a warning. I didn't smile, but something inside me loosened. The air felt lighter, the weight behind my ribs a little less sharp. I stopped at the edge of Grand Concourse, watching the traffic groan its way through early morning haze. Life moved on, fast, careless. But somewhere behind that rush, I knew the lesson lingered. And maybe, just maybe, one of those kids would remember that not every legend needs to scream. Some just wait. Watch, and when the time comes, remind the world how quiet power moves. Before I disappeared again, I passed a coffee shop window. The kid was inside. The same kid. Hoodie gone. Chain replaced with a simple cross around his neck. He saw me, and for the first time, he stood up. No phone, no recording, no audience. Just him, and he gave me a nod. Not of fear, not of fandom, but of understanding. I walked on. The wind kicked up behind me, rattling the trash cans and forgotten flyers. Somewhere a siren wailed, and in the rhythm of the city's heart I heard it again. The beat, the pulse, the truth. Legends don't die. They wait, they watch. And when the world forgets who carved its scars, they write their names back into the bones of the street. If you felt something tonight, if it stirred something quiet inside you, if it made you remember someone you were or someone you lost, don't scroll past. Don't just move on. Like, comment, subscribe. Not for me, but for every name the world tried to bury before its story was done. Because sometimes, the ghost is the only one left telling the truth.